Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Press. We're reaching you live from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight to analyzing the stories that we read out to you, and my guest on the show this morning is Kola Alapinni, international human rights lawyer. Great to have you on the show this morning, Kola.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you too. All right, so quite a number of stories we have. Let's start with I was looking for that's on the Punch newspaper. Says Dangote Refinery crude supply crisis threatens oil investment and operators warn federal government, and federal government's urge to deepen investors' confidence, but Dangote is allaying fear over refinery fire. And then I also saw another another headline that talked about the fire. Someone or some group of persons says that the fire was masterminded by enemies of progress. That's what the person says. What are your thoughts in this regard?
Well, is the person an insider or a member of the Dangote group? The man himself has allayed our fears to say that there was nothing to worry about. What I worry more about is the fact that we have the biggest refinery in the world, and we still don't have petrol. We have 3 big refineries in Nigeria, which as far back as the Obasanjo years, the government knew that those refineries were moribund. And if you remember very well, the Obasanjo administration tried to sell these refineries to Dangote himself. Then the former president, Umaru Yar'Adua, came in, overruled the sales of those refineries, and Dangote decided to build a new refinery by himself. It took donkey years. We eventually got to get in the refinery. And we would expect, Nigeria being the primary source of crude oil, supplying the refinery, we wouldn't have all these issues of queues. Can you still see queues all over Abuja? Why do we have queues? All the filling stations have petrol, but you can still see queues. And you start wondering what's going on. Is this artificial scarcity? Why is the refinery not producing petroleum since we're getting crude oil locally? As a matter of fact, I haven't heard that Dangote Refinery is not getting its crude from Nigeria. Right. It's getting its crude from abroad. What's going on? We need to talk more about this. What's the point? And even NNPC invested in Dangote Refinery, because ordinarily NNPC should be the one running their own refineries in national interest or building refineries. They refuse to do so. Throw a huge $20 billion into Dangote Refinery. Are we getting our money's worth? Is the taxpayer in this country getting his money's worth? So that it all seems shrouded in secrecy, and you're hearing about the IOC conspiracy against him, there's an oil cabal and everything. Why can't we just have it easy in our country? Drive into the filling station, buy petrol, and easy peasy. Why must everything be complicated for us as a country? It's mind-boggling.
Because you actually talked about that interview where he stated that the cartels you have in oil are far worse than what you have in the cartels on the network of cartels you have in drug. Like, you just begin to wonder. So, because I even remember he was asked, so did you know this before now? So I'm just wondering, even aside from Dangote, does it actually mean that someone else might not be given the opportunity to also invest or have the Dangote kind of dream and have a multi-billion-dollar refinery just to help at least cushion the effect of fuel scarcity in Nigeria?
No, I don't.
And it will not be killed.
I don't think anybody can be stopped from having another refinery like Dangote has given us. That power lies with the Minister of Petroleum Resources and the President. They are the ones who have the powers to grant such licenses and everything. So, I think if it's going to be in our national interest, no one should be stopped from duplicating what Alhaji Aliko Dangote has done. It will be in our interest. The more refineries we have, the more the petroleum products can go around, and we can even export. So
the more the merrier there.
The more the merrier it is for Nigerians.
All right, let's quickly take this call before we go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning, my sir. Good morning, again.
Good morning, sir.
Master Crapo from
Mazio Kafa from Arochukwu. Go ahead.
Yes, this crude oil we are talking about. We have excess crude oil in Nigeria. You ask yourself, all those modular refineries that the federal government gave approval to pay for, and many of them, so they didn't do anything. Maybe people the one that started example. Is it not wise for the federal government to go back to the base? All those boys that are doing this oil bunkering, why not bring them to the drawing board? Tell them, look, in Nigeria today we have up to 50 or 70 departments of petroleum. Let the government recruit all those boys that say petroleum, chemical and chemical engineering into the system. Attack them with these boys who are doing this crude oil, oil bunkering. Give them license, empower them, get used to that system and do all this local refinery. It will help us.
All right.
But we continue importing, it doesn't make sense. Honestly,
all right.
Look at Egypt, look at the transition facility in Egypt. It's Nigeria bigger than it's smaller than Egypt. Egypt is a small country, but look at Giants of Africa. Good morning.
Good morning, Mazio Kafo from Arochukwu. Great to hear from you this morning. Do you agree with Mazio Kafo? We should license the oil bunkers. Some people say yes, the modular refineries, I understand, but then the illegal ones, make them legal and let them begin to sell after they are. I am helping in pockets of areas. Do you agree?
First, I must commend him. It was very direct, straight to the point. No beating around the bush.
Right.
And he made his point less about a minute. Secondly, these are unusual times. Unusual times call for unusual measures. If we've tried everything and we're still dancing around in a circle, perhaps we should take some wisdom in what he has said. And that way you take away the illegality from what they're doing.
Kola, can you do the same thing for security?
We're already doing the same thing. We're just pretending. We have the vigilantes. We have, they are the ones who even know the terrain better. I think what we ordinarily should have done is to put a proper structure in place. But the states already, why do we have Amatekon in the western states? It's an admission that security forces have failed. And the Amatekon or the vigilantes in the north, they know the terrain better than you bring somebody from Arochukwu in Imo State to go and fight in a forest to help you push out the herders in a forest in Owo. How does a man in Arochukwu know what is happening in Owo? He doesn't know the terrain. Or you take someone from a half year to go and fight in Sambisa forest, or a man from Ibadan or Lagos. He doesn't know the terrain. Or we have insurgents or terrorists in Niger State. It's the people who are on the ground there who know the forest, who know the trails, who know the area, who speak the language. They're the best people to deploy to this place.
Okay, what I'm actually asking is if he says and you affirm that we should allow those boys who do the oil bunkering, use one keg, pick and then legalize them. How about those people who have they're not licensed to import security arms or materials? Should we then allow them enter the market and legalize them? That's what I'm asking.
No, I didn't get your question. And now that I got your question, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we know that security is a challenge in Nigeria. Even the federal government will not allow the states to have police. So why would you legalize unknown gunmen or known gunmen to start importing arms? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the federal government is still in charge of the overall security of Nigeria, but you need boots on ground. Bless you. You need the boots on ground who know the terrain better and who you can inculcate into your security plans. We can't keep shutting local knowledge out. Local knowledge is the bane of reconnaissance. If there is no recce, you cannot move in. And if you move in, you are at a disadvantage because your enemy knows the terrain better than you do. That's what I'm saying.
All right, let's move straight to other stories. Let's talk about cholera. Vanguard newspaper says federal government shopping for emergency vaccine as Nigeria records 55 deaths. 1,579 cases in 32 states coming from the NCDC. Now I'm wondering, cholera in 2024 in a place like Nigeria, and it's just now that we decided to start shopping for emergency vaccine. doesn't it look like, I was talking to someone yesterday, and then the person says, because we had Nigerians who were complaining about federal government and the US joint work to move someone to space, and then people were complaining, Shina, that one we go chop. And then this person was saying, but you have in a time where you have Elon Musk thinking further things more than that. So isn't it just looking as if others are moving like 10 steps forward, but Nigeria, we're just taking baby steps of pain? Let me use President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's word.
Yeah, he is the he is the main defaulter, because he doesn't seem to prioritize what is important to our country. There's so many things that you would see he has done in the last 1 year that are not a matter of priority. Looking for a presidential yacht, looking for presidential jets, that's not our priority. You're living large in convoys of vehicles, which cost so much to run, and you're expecting the ordinary man on the street to tighten his belt for you. And he's wondering, what's wrong with this man? Can't you see that I'm dying, and you keep telling me to tighten my own belt when you're feeding fat? So charity begins at home, and he's the main defaulter when it comes to not prioritizing. Back to the main issue, which is the issue of having a vaccine and cholera and everything. It's not just one simple answer to this question which you've asked. Ordinarily, yes, we should have a vaccine, maybe like a backup vaccine, since we know historically we've always had these issues: polio, cholera,
malaria.
Flu. Yeah, just so we should have a storage for it. But have you tried to buy fruits from some of these sellers by the roadside?
Oh,
have you seen the water which they use to clean these fruits? There was a video that went viral at some point in time. Yeah, one of our brothers from a certain part of the country was actually using the water from the gutter to wash the cucumber and this and that. It was amazing and shocking how he just thought that was normal. That is the problem. Education, some people come from a certain part of the country and they just think that it's normal to wash things in the gutter. So we need, more orientation, public education. We even want to, where is the National Orientation Agency these days? When we were growing up, everybody could see, we in school could sing the Y Brigade and this and that, jingles and the radio and the television. In those days, we had a behemoth NTA, which was broadcasting to 30 million Nigerians. Therefore, 30 million Nigerians could not be wrong, because that was the only source of information on TV. And we had all the TV stations in 19 states then and everything. But it's shocking, with the proliferation of TV stations and radio stations, that public messages don't go out anymore. And if it goes out these days, it's just political. We need more of these jingles. We need more of education for our people. This is the era of social media. Government doesn't seem to leverage on it. In fact, government treats the social media like an enemy and a threat to them, which it rightly is, because information spreads faster than it would do than the days of the NTA.
All right, so we are actually planning to have a conversation with the DG of NOA, because a lot is happening and we need to know what they are doing. Let's move to our next story. So go straight to the Nigerian Tribune. Talks about Rivers State crisis, says explosion aimed to justify call for emergency rule in Rivers State, coming from Fubara. One suspect arrested and receiving treatment. But then on Daily Sun, Fubara tells the Senate, we are not fighting anyone, while the Senate, the House of Rep leader is asking Wiki and Fubara to sheath their sword. What are your thoughts with regards to this continuous crisis happening in Rivers? It looks like, as though 1 year of some of this state's governor's administration has just been either fighting or trying to political vendetta, or just trying to one thing or the other. If it is not in Kano, it's in Kaduna. If it's not in Kaduna, it's in Rivers State, or is it somewhere else?
Well, it's unfortunate what happened in Kano. You asked what my thoughts on it. I already gave you my thoughts on it last week. said all parties to sheath their swords and face their respective businesses. Nyesom Wike has his hands full in the federal capital. That's more than enough to bite or chew on. Getting meddled in the Rivers affair is a distraction. The governor, Fubara himself, should own his space. He's the governor, and he needs to be more assertive and demonstrate that he's the governor. Nyesom Wike did it to his predecessor, Abichi, when Abichi was trying to poke nose into River State. Nyesom Wike put him squarely in his place. So it's time Fubara himself asserts himself as a governor and behaves like one. Sometimes it comes across as too laid back. Overall, it's a Rivers.
But did you actually think that he was going to keep up even up until now?
Yeah, I know. It's gotten a name. Don't underestimate the chap. He knows what he's doing. It's just his style. It's just more calm and laid back, and those are the most deadliest people because you can't read their mind and they don't talk too much. I just wish he will assert himself more and do the needful, restore peace and security into River State. He is the governor and he is in charge. Like I said, it's the Rivers people who are, at the losing end of all this destruction. The chap that tried to blow up the assembly yesterday is not dead, thankfully. So that it can be mined for information, and we can find out the people behind the mask. So that's an information treasure trove there, ready to be debriefed. So if he had died in the explosion, then that would have been the end of it. It would have made the work of the security forces more difficult. But he's alive and he can be debriefed, and perhaps we can get to the roots of this once and for all.
Okay, so I just remembered when you were talking about don't underestimate, especially people who are that quiet. I remember one statement that he made some time ago where he talked about the fact that lawyers, they talk too much, but accountants, they're just laid back, but they do their stuff.
Yeah, everybody's profession is different. Doctors don't talk as much when they're in the theater, but when they're in the consulting room, they have to talk and communicate. Words are the trademark of lawyers. We are known by our speech and our writing, and so are politicians. A politician is not going to win if he doesn't talk to the electorate. An accountant deals with figures. I don't understand figures, so...
So do you think that was just firing shots?
It was just being himself. I hold no grudges, When he runs into trouble, he comes to lawyers, doesn't he? And then we do the talking for him and the brain work. So you can't look down on anybody's profession. Fela said everybody gets in power everywhere. So that's it. He's a layman, so he's allowed to speak like one.
All right, viewers, our phone lines are open. You can call in to make your contributions or ask your questions, but please remember to turn down the volume of your TV set and leave your questions or your contributions just 1 minute. All right, let's stay on. Let's go to first newspaper this morning. The headline says Benue bloodbath, 2,600 lives lost in year of terror. Amnesty International demands accountability, says 18 out of 23 Benue local government areas under constant threat from armed attackers. We'd like to get your thoughts on that regard, but let's quickly take this call before we go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Okay, I'm Ayo from Kola State.
Ayo from Kola State. Go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Yes, I just want to contribute a little for the happenings in River State. I think I agree very much with your analysis there. I think that's what the government should do. It should be able to assert its position. I think enough is enough. I think all this shenanigans and up and down is all politics. And the better the government see himself as the authority in that state. If not, the way the things are going, they want to cause mayhem and loss of life. And I don't think that is necessary. Why at this particular time?
All right.
So I agree very much with your analysis. That's what we should do for now.
All right.
If president to go on, especially for what happened yesterday, I think that's taken too high. It's too high.
All right.
It's too far. Yes,
Thank you so much, Ayo from Kola State. Thank you so much for your contribution. Go ahead. Bloodbath, 2,600 lives lost in year of terror, coming from Amnesty International.
Yeah, I'm aware of that report, and we work closely with Amnesty International in the course of our work. I think that blame lies squarely on the doors of the past president, President Muhammad Buhari, who ruled for 8 years and just turned a blind eye to what was happening in Benue State. I mean, 78 people were killed in one day. The president didn't lift a finger. He didn't even go there or commiserate with them. Well, I just came back from Jos. I told you we were in Jos like 2 weeks ago. We went to where this Christmas Eve and Christmas Day attacks happened in the communities there, in Barikin Ladi, in Bokos, you know. And the people are afraid to go to the farms. There's going to be a higher... You think tomatoes cost for 1,000? I can predict to you that it's going to cost more because people are not going to the farms. We saw it with ourselves.
Kola, I bought tomato 3 for 1,000.
It's going to be more expensive,
wow.
Except you are going to use tin tomatoes. Use your tin tomatoes and blend it with the pepper in the blender, yeah, to eradicate.
Some people are even using cucumber.
Well, I hadn't heard of that, but I can assure you that prices of foodstuff are going to go high because we saw it for ourselves. People are not going to the farms. They are scared to go because of Fulani herdsmen are taking over their farms. We saw cattle roaming over the land, and the people are afraid. And the previous administration refused to address this adequately. There is no reason why someone should be driving cattle from another country, from Niger, from Chad, and just push it down all the way south into Nigeria, onto people's farms, onto people's fields, onto people's properties. There's no excuse. It's not done in other West African countries like Ghana or something. There will be severe consequences. And that's why they ran away from those countries and they've run to Nigeria because, you know, we had a president who had been appointed as the patron of the cattle rearers association. So they found succor under him and protection under him. And he was the most nepotistic president in power in the history of Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned. It was nepotistic, it turned a blind eye, and it was a free reign, a free for all, and we're paying for it as a country now. Can you imagine you seeing cattle, cows and everything on the streets of Abuja in front of the National Assembly?
But it's still happening till today, Kola.
So the man who entrenched that for 8 years was a former president, Muhammad Buhari. And this man, who is there now, has said he's going to continue with his policies. If he doesn't quickly put an end to all this and arrest the wandering of cattle and herdsmen carrying AK-47 all over the country, moving into people's farms, destroying their crops, going back to go and steal their food in their granaries, opening fire on people, then we are going to have more famine. There's going to be more hunger because people would not risk their lives to go into the farm. They were even calling the police. That was what they told us when we got to Bokos and we got to Barikin Ladi. They were attacked, largely, Christian community. Their crops were burnt. The food which these people were preparing for Christmas. They had, the food stock in their granaries. The attackers came back the next day and looted it and set fire on their farms, their churches, and all. These people, they kept calling the police, and the police said they didn't have any fuel to come. So they are afraid. They lost people. Hundreds of people died. They are afraid to go to the farms. They're scared. The cattle have taken over the farm. It's the same thing happening in Benue. Incessant attacks by, herdsmen, killer herdsmen. Amnesty International, and I think it was Human Rights Watch, had declared Fulani herdsmen as the 4th most dangerous terrorist organization in the world. This is not kids' play. And we allowed it to be entrenched for 8 years of the Buhari administration. It's still continuing, making it the 9th year now with President Bola Tinubu there. And you say that there's not going to be famine. There's going to be hunger in the land.
Okay.
It's the facts are there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you two questions based on taking a cue from what you stated. First, you talked about nepotism, which you said the previous administration was one of the most nepotistic administration that you have ever seen. Since then till now, how far so far? That's one. And secondly, we've always known that Fulani herdsmen, we've always grown with them, whether in our respective villages or states. But then we've always been, recently with all of this Fulani herder clashes and farmer clashes, we've always, we're told that they were being infiltrated. So you have the good ones and then the bad ones. So help us.
I'll take the second question first. We've always grown up with Fulani herdsmen, and they usually carried a stick, known as sanda, and a cutlass. There were skirmishes, but it was not on this level. I mean, as far back as the 70s or 80s, you hear the odd news that a Fulani man got into a fight with a farmer and cut the farmer's hand, or a farmer retaliated, etc., etc. That has always been there, but it's on the scale of machete versus machete, stick versus stick, wrestler versus man-to-man wrestling or whatever in the farms. After the fall of Muammar Gaddafi, let me tell you where we have arms proliferation on the West African coast, and especially coming from, North Africa. After the fall of Muammar Gaddafi, do you remember watching it on CNN and Sky News, how people poured into the compound and they were carting away arms and ammunition and everything? That is the root cause of what we're seeing. Years after Muammar Gaddafi has been dead since, how many years now? 12 years, 14 years? All these ammunition have been smuggled, a huge part of it have been smuggled across the desert into Nigeria and some West African states on the back of camels or on the other belly of camels. They just tie them with a rag and everything and smuggle them in the dead of the night. We don't have any border in northern Nigeria. In some places, there's a mango tree that is our border. In some places, it's just a gutter, and they're seeing the French-speaking part. And why do you think there was so much uproar when the ECOWAS wanted to take punitive action against Nigeria? And the people, were screaming, "These are our people. These are artificial borders created at the Berlin Wall Conference of 1885, where the European powers just took a pencil and carved Africa amongst themselves." So I have cousins in Benin Republic who speak French, who speak Yoruba with a French accent. Some of the Alapinni families were caught on the other side of the divide. Just like you have people in Jigawa who have cousins in Nigeria, and all in northern space like that. So have cousins in Chad. Some people attend school across the border and come back into Nigeria, and vice versa. So there was no way to stop these arms from coming in. And by the time you sell one cow or two, you're able to procure these AK-47s and deadly weapons. Where is the failure? The failure lies squarely at the feet of the government, who allow cattle rearers to move around with rifles, and they've done nothing to stop it. But guess who the culprits are? The government officials themselves have been known to own some of these cattle. And, because of cattle rustling, they just turn the blind eye and say, to protect their investments from there was one day that 400 cattle of the former Vice President Namadi Sambo were stolen. Have you forgotten? So, it's a means of protecting their investments. Okay, sell one or two cattle and buy the rifles you need to protect it. And that's why they're turning a blind eye, to the detriment of the whole country. We need to arrest these weapons from circulation, mop them up. And that's how it also spills over into Boko Haram and everything. With the too much proliferation of weapons in the hands of wrong people. So, what chance does the villagers with machetes and hoes have when herdsmen, all maybe like 20 of them, all having AK-47s, open fire on the whole village? No one is going to survive.
All right. Very quickly, in 1 minute, my other question that I asked with
about
regards
the
to
nepotism.
nepotism. Yeah,
it's a continuum. The incumbent said it was going to continue what his predecessor did, and so we're seeing the same. Son-in-law appointed into this place, daughter appointed there. It's a continuum. He already told. See, you don't listen carefully to this man when he speaks. He says the truth. He's not lying. He says, I'm going to continue with the policy of my predecessor, and he's doing so. So why are you all alarmed? He told you. And why are we? It's not new. The man said he means what he says and says what he means.
All right, so let's take other stories. Okay, because we're talking about security, let's stay on. Let's talk about the Northwest Summit, Security Summit. And we also had in attendance some security officials, governors, and even the former president. So do you actually think that all the resolutions made during that summit, is it going to ameliorate the insecurity that we have, especially in the Northwest, in the North, or even in Nigeria? Or is just one of those regular summits?
Annabel, insecurity or security, whichever side of the divide you're standing or sitting on, has become a big industry in Nigeria. I don't think any resolutions that they have agreed to or come up with is going to work. I don't think so. The closest that we saw with ending that insecurity was when we had the South African mercenaries who were brought in by the Jonathan administration fighting in the Northeast, and that was when we had that huge push. Former NSA, what's his name, Sambo Dasuki was there, and then they postponed the elections. That was when we actually saw a proper push, and then Buhari came in and dissolved that and said, no, the Nigerian army. The Nigerian army, the chief of army staff did not even obey his instructions. He gave a command during his inauguration at Eagle Square, commanding the chief of army staff to relocate to the Northeast and the service chiefs. Did they obey? I think that was one of the affronts to the Buhari administration. How could you as commander-in-chief deploy your chiefs and they refuse to obey? I will fire them the next morning and replace them. So this is institutional rot in the system, okay? And the only person who can really move with alacrity, as they say, and purge the system is the president himself. But the current system favors people. There's a lot. Have you seen the amounts which we deploy to security votes, the budgets of the military and everything? How is insecurity going to end when there's no accountability? There's so much money flowing into it. Why don't change a winning formula, as they say? If it's not broken, don't fix it. So it's just going to continue because of the amount of money that keeps getting poured into it. It's not going to end. There has to be a total turnaround, spearheaded by the number one man himself. There has to be a change of strategy and tactics to be able to put an end to this. And it's not difficult to end all this. It's just that people are feeding fat on the money being deployed into the security measures.
All right, let's take our last story from Kenya with the protest in Kenya, and then all that has been happening. A lot of people would just I've just stated that it's more like the NSARS protest that happened in 2020 in Nigeria, and some other persons say, oh, it's far worse than the NSARS protests. What are your thoughts in this regard?
Number one, I commiserate with Kenyan people. About 13 people died in the protest. I think the IMF said, the IMF and World Bank, I think, when one of their chiefs was Kim, the one that was supported by the Obama administration against Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Okay, that gentleman didn't even serve his full time. He did a few years and he left, and he said, well, I think a lot of the policies which we prescribed for Nigeria didn't work. Because at that point in time, Nigeria, when Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala was there, devised some other ways, and our economy actually prospered, whilst we jettisoned quite a number of the IMF recommendations and the World Bank recommendations. The IMF does not put fires out in Africa. They start fires, and that is what you've seen in Kenya. The people came out and robustly challenged the parliament. They took it right to their doorstep. And, if care is not taken, if we're bold enough, maybe we would see something like this in Nigeria if we don't have the political student union leaders that we have and the labor union leaders who are printing business cards all over. The president of Kenya, Ruto, was forced to a standstill and admitted, hey, my people have listened to you. You truly don't want this. I think we made a mistake here. We're going to listen and go back to the drawing board. That was what was missing with NSAS. And instead we deployed troops there and just made the whole situation disappear in court, so to speak.
Has it disappeared?
Well, it hasn't, but you know, we had a military dictator who had returned as president, and they crushed it, just like the Chinese Communist Party did in Tiananmen Square in 1989. So we even heard that there's still some people in detention up till now. So when you draw parallels between what's happening in Kenya and in Nigeria with the NSAS, there's so many lessons to be learned. You know, two African countries, almost similar economy, regional giants in their own right, one in East Africa, one in West Africa, have the same conundrum on their hands. How do they handle it? Deployment of troops, one where you have just 13 people murdered, and quickly the government had to put an end to it and listen. One where we just basically had a massacre, which we denied and were shoving under the carpet, and we didn't listen to our citizens. And it's like business as usual. So very soon you'll start seeing some of these videos that students make in the classrooms in the UK or the US, and they'll be comparing the two scenarios. These are some of the Simulex questions we used to do when I was schooling in the UK, and they use real-time issues, and then they ask you to analyze them, and you all sit down in seminar tables and little working groups, and you come up with a criticism, analyzing, and the way forward papers. I hope our Nigerian universities are doing that as well, because there's so much to learn between what happened in Kenya and in Nigeria. I
agree. Kola Alapinni, international human rights lawyer, thank you so much for your time with us. We're going straight to our social media corner, but I'd like you to, there's because we're talking about the Kenyan protest, there's the particular story, quite looks like sarcasm, but let me read it out and let's see the video. It says Senator Shehu Sani taunts his fellow Nigerian senators as he reacts to the news of Kenyan protesters attacking their parliaments. He says, when I watch the Kenyan senators running, I know that Saraki is physically fitted to run, but I am not sure of Senators Lawan and Akpabio. Dino can jump and climb tree, but Ben Bruce can only do catwalk. Really? Let's see that video and come to take other ones. So, hearing or seeing Senator Shehu Sani make all of that statement, was that sarcasm, Kola?
Yeah, as a good student of literature, you would you can detect the sarcasm there, and you can also see the truth. It is the truth.
It is.
It is the truth. I mean,
Kola, is it the truth?
You must give it to Senator Shehu Sani, being a long time journalist. He knows how to wield his pen and twist the truth with a good dose of humor. So, I mean, we've had instances where the security gate at the National Assembly has been breached, but I don't think we've had something as violent as what we've seen in Kenya. And so when you have people who you've elected or who have said they're representing you, the National Assembly is the direct voice of the Nigerian people. And if our people keep telling you, oh, we don't like this, we don't want this, there's too much money being deployed to the National Assembly, cut down on governance. You don't need $160,000 jeeps. You don't need this. And the people don't listen.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to see what you saw in Kenya.
Okay, I think we lost it.
The issue with Nigeria is just we're very, very resilient people. We just keep adapting, and the lawmakers know this, and people in government know this, and that's why they keep taking advantage of us.
All right, let me take our last video from social media. A particular person who is talking about the fact that African countries are far better than what you have abroad, especially for people who prefer to jackpot. Let's see that video and come to end the program.
Нашли контейнер море. Что не закон? Три контейнера. С той стороны закон. One vacation.
All these diabolic things. You are a Christian, right? From Imo. You should know that all this thing is diabolic. It's not from God directly. Abi? Are you not aware? Are you not aware that these things are diabolic? Are you not aware that it's diabolic? Is this thing look like Bible to your eye? Or it look like what is it called? A Quran for your eye? Those things there, they look like Quran for you.
People in West Africa are starting to live better than people in the Western world. Now, I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about if you're well-to-do, if you're doing pretty good in your life, it's better to be doing really well in Africa than it is to be in America. Now, I'm currently in America, and it's like a little bit of a culture shock coming back from Africa, because when you come here, you're around people who, on paper, they're very successful, rich, and all that. But all these people are drowning in debt. They got a nice car, but they don't own it. They've got a lease on it. They may say that they own a house, but they kind of do, but they have a huge mortgage on it. But in Africa, people own everything outright. And what does this lead to, like, in day-to-day life? Well, when you know someone who's well-to-do in Africa, they're a lot more relaxed. They feel like they can go on trips with you. They're a lot more generous. People here, even though they may have a lot of money on paper in America, the second they let their foot off the gas, the second they stop hustling, those bills will catch up on them really quick. And it shows like kind of why I feel West Africa is the future, because here people are putting up an appearance of being rich, well-to-do, but it's fueled by debt and it's fueled by them working 2 jobs. Husband and wife are both working high-paying jobs, 50 hours a week each, and doing all of that to just create this facade. Whereas in West Africa, once these guys have made it, they're living good lives.
All right, viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful time here on The Press. I'll see you again tomorrow. We will see you tomorrow. That's Friday. And I will see you again on Saturday on The Conversation. 10 a.m. is the time. My name is Annabel Orji. Good morning.